Hello students. In the previous lecture which you all have seen, I had discussed about the work or job areas of a clinical psychologist. And now in this one I am going to talk about the other different areas of work or the other different types of psychologists that are there. The first one which I'm going to talk about is the clinical psychologist. No, clinical psychologist was discussed in the previous lecture. We are going to talk about the counseling psychologist now. After the first comes a psychiatrist, then a clinical psychologist. After that comes a counseling psychologist. And counseling psychologist generally works with the motivational and emotional problems of the clients or the patients. So they are like more for adjustment problems, mild anxiety problems, disturbance which are not very severe. If it is a very severe kind of a mental disturbance, then they have to go to a clinical psychologist. The counseling psychologist you will find they are engaged in many clinics. They are engaged in the health sections, and you will find that they are organizing rehabilitation programs in different places. They basically help people in adjusting to difficult situations in life. They work for public agencies, and most of their work is based on talk, communication. They are very good listeners. All psychologists have to be very good listeners and very good observers. So these people are very good listeners who will patiently listen to whatever the client is trying to communicate, whether it is verbal or whether it is non-verbal. You know what a non-verbal communication? At times we are unable to express things in words, and the facial expressions, the dilation of your eyeball, the way you speak, whether you give a big pause before you start talking or whether you are hesitant, all these clues the psychologist generally, she or he generally grabs it, and that those become a good source of information when they are trying to analyze problems faced by their clients. So I hope the counseling psychologists and their areas of work is very clear to you. Now we move on to the community psychologist. Now there are certain psychologists who are appointed at the community level. Now if a clinical psychologist is dealing with the mental health of an individual, a community psychologist is dealing with the mental health of the community. That means many people together. They work for mental health agencies, private organizations, and state government. Basically, their job is to do an observation on a large number of people. They observe their behavior pattern, predict what can be the response for certain changes which are being planned, or maybe certain kind of situations which are cropping up, and so what can be the response of the people. They have many community psychologists also work with special populations, like they can work with the elderly people. They can work at places where there are people who are suffering from certain common diseases also. They can go to places where, like, there has been a calamity and the people are suffering from PTSD. You must be knowing what is PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. So when people experience these kind of natural calamities, their mental condition is very, very unstable. And at that time, the government and many agencies appoint psychologists who will go to those places, who will be addressing to these people, who will be talking to them, comforting them, making them realize that things will be normal. Whatever was happening has already happened. Just get back to normal work. They will be holding their hands, giving them a lot of warmth, and assuring them then the things will become normal. Basically, they are engaged in CBR, that is the community based rehabilitations, and it is like one of their major area of work. They can organize a camp for people who have been drug addicts and just want to get back to normal life. So they can organize a workshop, a big campaign for those people who will be treated under the drug rehabilitation. So community psychologists have got a lot to do, and in large scale. After the community psychologist, you must have heard of school psychologist. Now, school psychologists and school counselors are different. School counselors' work, it is very clear to you. You know what generally children do. They go, they talk to them. At the same time, many schools, many universities appoint psychologists who are there to conduct training for the staff, at the same time for the students, who are there to conduct tests. Now it depends according to the level of their training, whether they can just administer the test to the students or the staffs, or they will be able to interpret the tests also. You know that the psychological tests are very sensitive tests, and anyone and everyone cannot do the interpretation of those tests. You need specially trained people to do those interpretation and make the conclusions. So here, if a school psychologist is well trained, he or she can conduct or administer those tests to the students or to the staff, and at the same time can interpret the results and use the data for the betterment of the school, for certain predictions, maybe for planning for something new or things of that sort. They can conduct those tests, they can conduct a survey, they can go ahead with those things. And the other work, they facilitate communication between parents, teachers and administrators, and also provide teachers and parents with information about the academic progress of the student, which is a work of the school counselor also. So if it is the case of a single student in a particular class who has been disturbed because of maybe a minor incident which has happened in the class, but we as teachers are looking at that particular incident as a minor incident, but according to that particular child, it is a life changing incident. It can be a traumatic incident which can disturb the child to a great extent. So in that case, a school counselor will help that child to come out of that fear which the child has already developed because of the incident which happened in the class. She will be communicating with the teacher, she will be communicating to the administrative people over there, and will sort out the whole issue. She will have to handle the thing in a very confidential manner and settle the problem in the class, settle that particular child in the class, and make him or her comfortable and give him ample amount of assurance that things are just all right. You are not going to face any such problem. Just be comfortable and continue with your regular activities in the class. At the same time, she will also have to do a lot of follow up. She generally goes and talks to the other teachers, subject teachers, and tries to find out whether the child is out of the trauma or not. I'm just giving you an example. If that child is not back to his normal behavior, then there has to be much more of talking involved in it. Peer counseling and other things can be used. It depends on how the whole issue is being dealt with. The last type of psychologists who are much in demand nowadays are the organizational psychologists. Many organizations, they always appoint a special psychologist in their organization who will be doing a lot of communication between the employees, amongst the employees. If there are conflicts, if there are issues, this particular person will be sorting out those issues. Like they provide organizations with consultancy services and organize skill training programs, the workshops and all. They conduct a lot of workshops. They conduct all those training programs to enhance their efficiency and effectiveness, to increase the productivity of the people. These organizational psychologists, they help the people working, the employees, in enhancing more of their active participation in the profit of the organization. And return, what happens, like the productivity of that particular unit goes up. So this is the person, she or he is the person who's giving a lot of help to people in that organization. And this help can be a very small help. If a particular person is having problem at home and he is unable to complete his job or the task given to him on a daily basis, he or she can approach the counselor, the psychologist who's appointed there, and go sit with her or him and talk, discuss his problems. Although it is a personal problem, but it is affecting the work of this particular employee. So this person can easily approach him and find out solution to it. At the same time, it is possible that there is a big conflict between the two, like the employer and the employees. They have together come to a particular decision which maybe the employer is not ready to accept. So there a big gap is created in between, and then it cannot normally function, because these two will have to go hand in hand. The employees need to have job satisfaction to be productive, and at the same time they cannot carry their loads of stress to their workplace. They need to be comfortable when they are coming for work. So it is the job of this particular psychologist to see to the fact that from both ends they are maintaining a comfortable balance, both are at peace, and the environment in that organization is also very conducive for these people to work and feel free. So all of you now, by now you know what are the different prominent fields. There are other fields also where generally nowadays the psychologists are being appointed, but for according to your syllabus, these are the ones which you need to know. Rest we will be discussing later. Thank you so much.